January 1945. Königsberg, on the eastern edge of Prussia. The city is already broken. 5 months earlier, British bombers gutted its medieval heart, and the castle on the hill stands scorched at the edges, holding on. Beneath it, in the cellars, men are working by whatever light they can find. Candles, lanterns, the thin beam of an electric torch. They are filling crates with straw and tissue paper, and into that straw they are lowering panels of carved amber, honey-coloured, cognac-coloured, some of it dark as old wood. The amber is fragile. It hates the cold. It hates being moved. The men know this. They have spent years keeping it alive. One of them seals the last crate. Another makes a final note in a ledger. The crates are stacked in the dark. And that is the last time anyone wrote anything down. No one who entered that room after those crates were sealed has ever described what they found. 6 tons of amber, 2 centuries old, packed into wooden boxes in a doomed city. And then, nothing. No photograph, no record, no witness who can be believed. This is the story of the most beautiful room ever made by human hands, and of the night it stopped existing. Before the war, before the crates, before any of it, there was a room in a palace south of St. Petersburg. Not a room in the ordinary sense. Every wall was made of amber. Every panel, every pilaster, every carved surface was built from thousands of pieces of fossilized Baltic resin, cut and fitted together like a vast jigsaw and backed with gold leaf. The gold did something strange. Amber does not shine by reflecting light. It glows by letting light pass through it. So when you stood in that room by candlelight, the light it was built for, the walls did not gleam back at you. They burned softly from within, warm and deep and alive, as if the room were something grown rather than something built. 6 tons of amber, more than 55 square meters of it, mirrored columns that caught the glow and threw it back and forth until it seemed to have no end, gilded carving climbing toward the ceiling, and set into the walls 4 mosaics of polished Florentine stone, each one an allegory of the human senses. People called it the 8th wonder of the world. That was never an official title. It was simply what visitors reached for, because the ordinary words ran out. They stood inside it, and they needed something larger than language to describe what they were looking at. That room was its home for nearly 200 years. Tsars walked through it. Empresses received guests in it. It survived revolutions, fires, the slow grinding of centuries, and then, in the space of a single winter, it disappeared so completely that to this day no one can tell you where it went. What you will see in this film, in old photographs, in the gleaming reconstruction that draws thousands of visitors every year, is an approximation. A careful, brilliant, painstaking guess at something that is no longer in the world. The original is gone. This is the story of how that happened, and of why, 80 years later, the question of where it went has never been closed. To understand what was lost, you have to understand what amber is. It is not a stone. It is tree resin, sap that oozed from ancient forests millions of years ago, hardened, was buried, and was eventually washed up on the shores of the Baltic Sea. Pick up a piece, and it is warm against the hand, lighter than you expect, faintly electric. Hold it to the light, and you sometimes see what is trapped inside. A bubble, a fleck of bark, occasionally an insect, frozen mid-movement in a world that vanished long before there were any human eyes to see it. At the turn of the 18th century, amber was worth more by weight than gold. It was also almost impossible to carve. Cut it wrong, heat it wrong, apply pressure at the wrong angle, and it splits. The idea of building an entire room out of the stuff was either genius or madness, probably both. The project began around 1701 in the new Kingdom of Prussia. Friedrich I had just crowned himself king, and a new king needs to announce himself to the world. The design is credited to the architect and sculptor Andreas Schlüter, though the historical record on exactly how much was his hand is not entirely settled. The actual building of the panels fell to a Danish master named Gottfried Wolfram, and later to two craftsmen from Danzig, Ernst Schacht and Gottfried Thurau. These men were inventing as they went. No one had ever attempted amber on this scale. There was no manual, no tradition, no one to ask. Every technique had to be worked out by trial and failure, by ruined panels and split sheets, by hands learning what the material would and would not allow. What they produced ended up installed in the Royal Palace in Berlin, and even unfinished, it was unlike anything else on Earth. Then, in 1716, the room left Prussia forever. Friedrich I was dead. His son, Friedrich Wilhelm I, was a very different man. A soldier king who found art faintly ridiculous and preferred his money spent on tall men for his regiments. To him, the amber panels were not a treasure. They were a bargaining chip. Peter the Great of Russia wanted an alliance against Sweden, and Peter had admired the amber. So Friedrich Wilhelm gave it to him. By most accounts, the exchange ran in the other direction too. Peter sent back a yacht and a number of unusually tall soldiers for the Prussian king's beloved regiment. Sit with that for a moment. One king handed over something his own father had spent years building and barely felt the loss. Because to him, it was just clever stone. The other received it and was, by every account, delighted. He understood exactly what it was. Peter had spent his life dragging Russia toward Europe, and he knew that beautiful things were a kind of power. Proof that you belonged among the civilized nations. That gap between what a thing is worth to the person giving it and the person receiving it runs through this entire story. It will return. The amber traveled east in 8 crates through Königsberg to St. Petersburg. And there, decades later, the room finally became what it was meant to be. Under the Empress Elizabeth, in the 1740s and 50s, the Italian-Russian architect Bartolomeo Rastrelli took the original Prussian panels and reimagined them on a far grander scale for the Catherine Palace at Tsarskoye Selo. He added the mirrored columns, the gilded carving, the 4 Florentine mosaics. Friedrich II of Prussia sent more amber to help fill the larger walls. Here is the remarkable thing. No single mind designed the finished room. It accumulated. Over decades, through Prussian craftsmen and a Russian empress and an Italian architect, it grew layer upon layer into something greater than any one of them had imagined. By the 19th century, it was the showpiece of the Russian Empire, old, priceless, and impossible to replace. This was the room, the 8th wonder, the chamber that took half a century and 3 nations to build. And in October of 1941, a team of soldiers would take it apart in 36 hours. For 200 years, the room had keepers, people who knew it the way you know an old house, its moods, its quirks, the way the cold made it brittle and the summer made it sweat. In the years before the war, the curators at the Catherine Palace tended it the way you tend something living. They did not know what was coming. On the 22nd of June 1941, Germany invaded the Soviet Union. This was not a war in the ordinary sense. Operation Barbarossa was a war of annihilation, designed not merely to defeat the Soviet state, but to destroy whole populations. Within months, German Army Group North reached the approaches to Leningrad, and the city outside which the Catherine Palace stood would soon be encircled. The siege that followed would last nearly 900 days and kill more than 1 million civilians in Leningrad alone, most of them through starvation. That is the world the Amber Room was about to be pulled into. We will not linger on it, because it is not ours to use. But you should hold it in your mind. The room is an object. Everything around it is people. As the front drew near, the Soviet staff at Tsarskoye Selo tried to save the room. They knew it could not be moved like a painting, so they tried to take the panels down and found the amber crumbling in their hands. 2 centuries of Russian winters had made it desperately brittle. Lift a panel from the wall, and it began to fall apart. They could not save it. So they did the only thing left to them. They hid it. They covered the amber walls with wallpaper and tissue and whatever they could find, and they hoped, against everything they must have known, that the invaders would not realize what was underneath. It is one of the most human moments in this whole story. People who loved something they could not rescue, papering over it, tucking it in, and praying. It did not work. In October 1941, German troops reached the palace, and they had not come blind. A specialist team was sent, men who knew exactly what they were looking for. They saw the papered-over walls, and they understood at once. They stripped the paper away, and then they began, methodically, to take the room apart. They were good at it. They had done this kind of work before in other occupied cities to other things. They were not afraid of damaging the amber because they were taking it regardless. The panels came off the walls and went into crates packed with straw and tissue, around 27 or 28 of them. The records disagree on the exact number. In roughly 36 hours, it was done. The room that had taken 50 years to build stood bare. The crates were loaded and sent west. Their destination was Königsberg, the old Prussian capital, the heart of the German East, the city of the philosopher Kant. The crates were taken to the castle, and there the room found the most devoted keeper it would ever have. His name was Alfred Rode. He was the director of the Castle Museum, and he was an amber specialist, a man who had spent his whole life studying the very material these walls were made from. By most accounts, he loved the room. He unpacked it, he reassembled it on the castle walls, he put it on display, and he watched over it with something close to possessiveness, the careful, jealous attention of a man who has finally been given charge of the one thing he understands better than anyone alive. There is a hard truth in Rode. He was the curator of a stolen masterpiece taken from a country his nation was actively trying to destroy. He kept meticulous records of an object he had helped to steal. He is not a hero. He is not quite a villain. He is a man caught between his expertise and his complicity. And for a few years in that castle, he was happier than he had any right to be. Then the war that brought him the room began to take it away again. In August 1944, British bombers came for Königsberg. The raids gutted the medieval city in firestorms and damaged the castle. Rode took the panels down once more and moved them deeper into the castle's storage, trying to keep the room alive through the coming winter. But the winter of 1944 into 1945 was the end of everything. The Red Army was advancing across Prussia. Königsberg was being turned into a fortress for a final stand. Roads choked with refugees. The Baltic ports overwhelmed. A whole German world collapsing in on itself in the cold. And somewhere in the middle of it all, in the cellars of a burning city, 6 tons of ancient amber waited in crates. Return now to where we began. January 1945. Rode oversees the packing one final time. The panels go back into the crates, straw, tissue, careful hands in the cold. He keeps his records, as he always has. The last firm entry in the paper trail falls somewhere around the middle of January. The crates are sealed. They are stacked in the castle. And that is the last thing anyone can prove. What happened next is the void at the center of this story. Not a withheld answer, not a trick. An actual hole in the record of the world. Think about the impossible position. The city is surrounded. The roads out are chaos. The Baltic is full of mines and submarines. To move the crates is to risk losing them on a frozen road or at the bottom of the sea. To leave them is to abandon them to whatever the fall of the city brings. We do not know if Rode tried to move them. We do not know if the Nazi administrators ordered them sent somewhere. We do not know if anyone decided anything at all, or whether the decision was simply made by the chaos, as decisions so often are when a world is ending. In early April, the Red Army assaulted Königsberg. The battle ended on the 9th, with the surrender of the German garrison. It was savage. The castle, used as a strongpoint, was caught in the firestorm of the city's fall. It burned. Was the amber still inside when it burned? Had it been moved? Was it buried in the cellars beneath the collapsing stone? No one who walked into those ruins could say. The Red Army took the city. Investigators came, and the room was simply not there. There is a final door, and it closes in December of that same year. Soviet investigators had been searching for the one man who could tell them what had happened, the man who handled the crates last, who kept the records, who knew the castle's hidden spaces. Alfred Rode. They found him. But before they could properly question him, Rode and his wife both died of typhus in the ruined, disease-ridden city under Soviet occupation. He never spoke. The single person most likely to know the fate of the Amber Room died of a fever in a broken city and took whatever he knew into the ground with him. That is the climax of this story. Not an explosion. Not a revelation. A man dying quietly of disease and an absence where a room used to be. The room existed, and then it didn't. And nobody, to this day, can honestly account for the space between those two facts. What do people do with a question that cannot be answered? They spend their lives on it. That is the real subject of everything that came next. The first to try was a Soviet investigator named Alexander Brusov. In June 1945, leading the first formal Soviet mission to find the room, he reached the obvious conclusion. The castle had burned. Amber burns. The room had last been seen inside the castle. Therefore, the room had burned with it. He wrote it down plainly. Destroyed in the fall of Königsberg, sometime between the 9th and 11th of April. And then he changed his mind. Here the record becomes contested, so listen carefully. The British investigators Catherine Scott Clark and Adrian Levy, working decades later from Soviet archives, argue that Brusov was pressured to recant, that the Soviet establishment, and in particular the long-serving curator Anatoly Kuchumov, could not afford to admit the room was simply gone. Under Stalin, losing an imperial treasure of that magnitude through carelessness, or worse, through the actions of the Red Army itself, was not the kind of thing one survived admitting. So, the argument goes, the conclusion, it was destroyed, was quietly buried. And in its place grew a far more comfortable idea that the room had survived, that it was hidden, that it was out there, somewhere, waiting to be found. That interpretation is persuasive. It is not proven, but if it is right, then the entire global treasure hunt of the last 80 years was launched not by evidence, but by a cover-up of the most likely answer. The theories multiplied. Let us weigh them honestly. The strongest is the simplest. The room burned at Königsberg in 1945. It fits everything we know. The castle burned. The amber was flammable. The last confirmed sighting was crates inside that castle. There is no conclusively identified debris of the panels, and so it cannot be called proven, But this is where the weight of the evidence sits. The second possibility is that it is still there, buried under what is now the Russian city of Kaliningrad. Geographically, this makes sense. Whatever was in those cellars is somewhere beneath the modern city. The ground has been searched again and again. Nothing has been found. The third is the engine of the legend, that the crates were spirited away and hidden in a mine. Salt mines in Germany, copper mines in Poland, bunkers in the Ore Mountains. Each lead has produced headlines, then expeditions, then disappointment. In one Polish bunker complex, searchers found a sealed chamber and opened it with great ceremony. It was empty. Every serious dig has ended the same way. The fourth is the most dramatic, and it requires care. The theory is that the crates were loaded onto a ship that then sank in the Baltic, most often the Wilhelm Gustloff, torpedoed in January 1945 with thousands of people aboard, most of them refugees and wounded. It is one of the deadliest sinkings in maritime history. It is a war grave. We will not turn it into a prop for an Amber story, so we will say only this. No manifest, no credible witness places the Amber Room on that ship. There is no evidence, and we will leave the dead where they lie. The remaining theories, that the Soviets secretly recovered the room and concealed the fact that it sits in some far-flung hidden cache, have no evidence behind them at all. They are the froth that gathers on the surface of any mystery left open long enough. But the theories are not really the story. The people are. Consider Georg Stein, a West German who gave years of his life to the search, who chased lead after lead, who could not let the question go. The search cost him his home and ruined him. In 1987, he was found dead in a Bavarian forest. The death was ruled a suicide. His name became part of what people began to call the Amber Room curse. A supposed string of deaths touching those who hunted for it. Let us be clear about that word. The deaths are real. The curse is folklore. It is what the human mind does when it stares too long into an unsolved thing. It starts to see a pattern, an intention, a hand moving in the dark. There is no curse. There is only obsession, and what obsession costs. Consider Erich Koch. He was the Nazi governor of East Prussia, and before anything else, you should know that he was responsible for mass atrocities in occupied Ukraine, a man whose real legacy is measured in murdered civilians, not lost art. After the war, he was imprisoned in Poland, and for decades it was believed he might know where the room was. He never told. He died in prison in 1986, with whatever he knew, or pretended to know, intact. Whether he was teasing his captors, buying himself relevance, or genuinely holding a secret, we will never be able to say. And the searching kept narrowing the ground. In 1968, on Soviet orders, the gutted ruin of Königsberg Castle was demolished altogether. Whatever might have lain in its cellars was buried deeper, then cleared, then built over. With every passing decade, the most likely resting place became harder to reach. Then, in 1997, after 50 years of nothing, one piece came back. A single Florentine stone mosaic from the room surfaced in Germany, in the city of Bremen, traced to the family of a German soldier who had been part of the convoy that carried the amber to Königsberg in 1941. Alongside it, a matching chest of drawers. German investigators recovered them and confirmed it. This was real. This was a genuine survivor of the lost room. Sit with how strange that is. After half a century of empty mines and false leads and ruined lives, the war gave back exactly one fragment, enough to prove the room had been real, enough to prove that at least a piece of it had survived the fall of the city and traveled west into a soldier's home. And not enough, not nearly enough, to say a single useful thing about where the rest of it went, one mosaic, out of all of it, one. In 1979, the Soviet government made a decision. If the room could not be found, it would be made again. The reconstruction took 24 years. The craft of working amber on this scale had very nearly died out, and the teams had to rediscover it almost from scratch. Sourcing the raw resin, sorting it by color, cutting and carving and fitting it, panel by painstaking panel, working from old photographs and the few surviving records of the original. It was completed in 2003, dedicated by the leaders of Russia and Germany for the 300th anniversary of St. Petersburg. By every account, it is magnificent. The light moves through the amber exactly as it should. Visitors walk in and feel what visitors have always felt. That warmth from every wall, that sense of standing inside something alive. But it is not the original. There is something to admire in that 24-year effort. It is an act of pure refusal. A refusal to accept that beauty can simply be erased from the world. And there is something honest in it too. You do not spend a quarter of a century rebuilding a thing that did not matter. The sheer scale of the reconstruction is itself a measure of the size of the loss. But it answers a different question than the one we came with. We asked, where did the room go? The reconstruction does not know, it cannot know. What it answers instead is a stranger question. Can beauty survive its own destruction? And even there, the answer is double-edged. Yes, in a way, through enormous human effort. And no, because the original is irreplaceable, and every craftsman who worked on the copy understood that completely. So where is the original? The most honest reading of the evidence is the one Brusov reached first before he was persuaded to take it back. The room probably burned. The documents, the physics of amber and fire, the simple fact that the last confirmed sighting was crates inside a castle that was about to be consumed. All of it points to the panels being destroyed in the fall of Königsberg in April 1945. Possibly, if Scott Clark and Levy are right, in fires set in the chaos that followed the Soviet capture of the city. But it is not proven, and it may never be. Kaliningrad still has unexcavated ground. The record still has gaps. The digs still happen. As recently as 2023, searchers near a former Nazi headquarters in Poland went looking for a buried railway and hidden cargo. They dug. They found old wagon wheels and wartime debris. They did not find the room. So this is where we leave it. In a palace south of St. Petersburg, a room glows. Thousands of people walk through it every year. They photograph it. They stand inside the amber light and feel the warmth of it. And most of them have no idea that one panel in that wall is not a copy. One mosaic. Touch and smell. Real Florentine stone, recovered from a soldier's family 50 years after the war, set back into the wall among the reconstruction. It looks almost exactly like the panels around it. Almost no one can tell which one it is. The real thing, hidden inside the perfect reproduction of itself. And somewhere else, in a fire that went out 80 years ago, or in a sealed shaft beneath a Baltic city, or under cold water, or in rubble cleared away and built over long ago, is everything else. The room existed. It was the most beautiful thing human hands ever made, and it took 2 centuries and 3 nations to make it. It may still exist, waiting under the ground or the sea, or the light that lived inside it for 200 years may simply have gone out. On a night in April 1945, in a city that was also burning. We cannot tell you which.